Welcome.
Wildlife conservation is not just an option. It is our moral responsibility to protect the planet's incredible biodiversity for future generations. Good evening, one and all. I welcome all of you to the day 2 of Wildlife Week Celebrations 2023, put forward by Kerala Law Academy Law College in association with Forestry Club and IQAC KLA, dedicated to the cause of wildlife conservation. Today, we have gathered here to commemorate the marvels of our natural world and engage in discussions about the vital importance of its preservation for the generations to come. Kerala Law Academy Law College, established in 1966 by the legal luminary, late Dr. N. Narayanan Nair Sir, is a seat of excellence in education, consultancy, research, and in pioneering law reforms. Kerala Law Academy Law College is always in its constant effort for pioneering novel ideas and is in the path of deliberation to provide the best stimulating experience to the students to harbor and bring out the polished versions of their talents and skills through its various programs and events of international and national importance. Organizing a variety of events throughout the week to celebrate and observe wildlife is also its notable initiative. Today, we are fortunate to have a passionate and knowledgeable speaker who will impart their insights regarding eco-restoration works at Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. Every great journey begins with a warm welcome. Now, I invite Srimati Priya M.K. Ma'am, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy Law College, for the welcome address. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Janagi. Good evening, one and all. Most respected Advocate Meera Chandran, Secretary of Forest First Samadhi and Project Coordinator of Wayanad and Kodagu, Advocate Nagaraj Naran Sir, Director, Kerala Law Academy, Member, Bar Council of Kerala, Professor K. Anil Kumar Sir, Director, Administration Students and Faculty Affairs, Sri K. Harindran Sir, Principal, Kerala Law Academy Law College, Srimati Kasturi Nagaraj Ma'am, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy, Sri N.K. Shashidharan Sir, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy, and other respected personalities present here. A very warm welcome to one and all. It's a great matter of pride and privilege to welcome the legal dignitaries who have gathered here to take part in the wildlife celebration to 2023, put forward by Kerala Law Academy Law College in association with KLA Forestry Club and IQAC KLA to promote the conservation and protection of animal life. We are delighted to have each one of you joining us on this auspicious occasion. Wildlife Week is observed to raise awareness about the role of wildlife in maintaining ecological balance. A long-term damage to wildlife can threaten the entire ecosystem. Therefore, it's crucial to protect wildlife systematically and wholeheartedly. The theme of the World Wildlife Day 2023 is Partnerships of Wildlife Conservation, honoring the people who make a difference. Kerala Law Academy aims to make its fraternity more aware of the conservation and protection of wildlife through various activities during this week. Now, I would like to move on to the formal welcome address. Firstly, I would like to welcome our most honorable guest of the day, Advocate Meera Chandran Ma'am, Secretary of Forest First Samadhi and Project Coordinator for Wayanad and Kodagu. Ma'am has an overall experience of 25 years and holds an electrical and electronics engineering degree and a bachelor's degree in law. She anchors eco-restoration in Wayanad jointly with tribal communities. Ma'am co-founded Forest First Samadi, an NGO involved in restoration of degraded lands and conserving native and RET floral species of Western Ghats. Over the past 10 years, she has worked with private owners, coffee estate owners, temple committees of sacred groves, and the Kerala Forest Department. She was felicitated for her work in manually uprooting invasive Senna spectalibus by Kerala Forest Department's Social Forestry Wing at Manandavadi, Wayanad in November 2022. She has also played a pivotal role in drafting several public interest litigations in issues related to large-scale projects impacting critical wildlife habitats in Western Ghats of Kerala and Karnataka. With utmost privilege, I welcome ma'am to this session. Now, we have the esteemed presence of Advocate Nagaraj Narayan Sir, Director, Kerala Law Academy Law College and member, Bar Council of Kerala. Sir is a great environmentalist and nature lover with qualities of good communicator, trainer, and professional administrator who always extends his support to all the activities of this college. I welcome you, sir, to this session.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to welcome Professor K. Anil Kumar Sir, Director, Administration, Students and Faculty Affairs, Kerala Law Academy, who is an initiator of all the events of this college and also a chief mentor. I welcome you, sir, to the session. Next, I would like to welcome Professor K. Harindran Sir, Principal, Kerala Law Academy, who always support us in every initiative of this institution. Hearty welcome to you, sir. Next, I would like to welcome Srimati Kasturi Nagaraj Ma'am, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy, as always a forefront naturalist, good teacher, and a very welcoming personality and an active member in Forestry Club. I wholeheartedly welcome you, ma'am, to this session.
Thank you, Priya.
Sri N.K. Shashidharan Sir, Assistant Professor of our college, is the soul of KLA Forestry Club and is an active member in all the academic and other activities conducted by this institution. I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Professor G. Anil Kumar Sir, Vice Principal, Kerala Law Academy, and Professor Dr. Ajita Nair Ma'am needs no special introduction. Their contribution to the institution is immense. I wholeheartedly welcome you, sir and ma'am, to this session. I also take this opportunity to welcome Sri Varun Dev S., Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy Law College. Sir will also be rendering the vote of thanks to this session. I extend a hearty welcome to you, sir. Last but not the least, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our faculty conveners, teaching and non-teaching staff, moderators of this session, students, participants, and each one of you present here. Your continuous efforts play a very important role in making this event a reality. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm welcome. I take this opportunity to welcome you too into this session. Today, we are blessed with the presence of Advocate Meera Chandran. She has an overall experience of about 25 years and holds an electrical and electronics engineering degree and a bachelor's degree in law. She is the Secretary of Forest First Samiti and the project coordinator for Wayanad and Kodagu work. Now, I invite Advocate Meera Chandran ma'am to enlighten us upon the topic eco-restoration works at Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. Ma'am, please.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thanks to the Kerala Law Academy for inviting me over. And it is amazing to see such a young crowd of lawyers attending this so heartening to kind of have this kind of an interaction with, in the occasion of the World Wildlife Week. It's my honor to be here and, addressing all of you and, kind of imparting the short knowledge that we have got, in a smaller time frame. So thank you so much for inviting me over. I'll just move on to the to my presentation. I hope my slides are visible. My screen is visible. If you could just confirm, then I will just be on presentation mode. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. You're visible.
Yeah. So how I would like to take this, this conversation forward is, I would call it conversation because I'm hoping that, there'll be more interactions towards the end of the session. How I would like to do is, and the part one is about what is the need for conservation of forests. It's how we see it. the second part is the work that we are doing through eco-restoration and livelihoods through the degraded forest land restoration work that we are doing in both Wayanad and Kodagu. And, the part 3 is about, listening to you more on what your thoughts are and how can we all together take this forward, with respect to the forest conservation and wildlife conservation, right? So to start with, I would like to talk about this biocapacity, right? I mean, we are talking about what is called an Earth Overshoot Day. I hope you understand that there is an Earth Overshoot Day. You can look up. There is this particular group which basically does what is the data with respect to Earth Overshoot Day. It is nothing but the amount of ecological resources Earth is able to regenerate within that year for whatever humans are basically consuming, right? And if you look at it in 2019, this was somewhere around July 2019, which means that we have consumed the resources which we can regenerate within, say, 7 months time frame, which means we were consuming from the future. In 2023, I just looked up and saw that it was August, 2023. So it's about how much are we consuming, which the Earth can regenerate. This is called the Earth Overshoot Day, right? And then every year they're coming up with this particular day. Now we will wonder whether population is the problem. And interestingly, this Oxfam study shows that it is not the population that is the problem, but rather our lifestyle and consumption, which is the problem. So basically, it's about almost 49% of the world's resources is being consumed by the small percentage of 10% of the richest people. So while there is also, this issue with respect to the kind of widening gap between the rich and the poor, the amount of consumption that is concentrated among the rich is also increasing. So I think we all need to, start looking at how much are we really consuming, per annum. It could be anything to start with, mobile phones to everything that we are thinking about as our daily usage. What is the connection that it has with respect to the forests of the world? And ultimately, it's around 1.7 Earths that is basically needed. This is the data that is as of 2017. Now, we can go on debating that, it is India versus other developed countries, but ultimately it's just one Earth. And we are consuming, in fact, some of the food produces that we are having, we are exporting to other countries, which means along with the food, it's also water that is getting exported. So it's a connected world ultimately, right? And overall, 1.7 Earths is what we need now, for making the consumption sustainable, right? So which means that we're also taking from a different section of the society. So it's also connected to the previous slide that I just showed you. So coming to the forests, right? And
Ma'am,
yeah.
Sorry for the interruption, but are you sharing the screen?
Oh, yes, I am. Sorry, I thought I was sharing this and...
So, ma'am, it's not visible.
Oh, it's not visible? Okay. I was sharing, that's why I just asked in the beginning. If, 1 minute. There is a screen that, was, okay. Sorry, I think I will
Okay,
just go back. Yeah.
Now it is visible.
Visible. Okay. So I'll just go back to the first slide so that I hope we will not overshoot on the time. Please stop me when, when it is time's up, 5 minutes prior to that, it'll be great. Yeah, so this is the Earth Overshoot Day that I was trying to explain, the kind of ecological resources that we are consuming every year, right? I mean, from Jan to December, how much are we basically consuming from the Earth's resources? So July to 2019 is this, the cutoff that we had in 2019, whereas in 2023, it was August, which means that we're always consuming from the future. Now, the next bit that I was just trying to share was the issue with respect to the world's population. And it's not the population. This is what I was just sharing, that, the top 10% of the rich is consuming the 50% of the resources. So this was a Oxfam study. And then, this shows that it's definitely not the population that is causing the major problem. And here is what about the 1.7 Earths that we need. So if you just look at this map, India probably is in red, same with a lot of countries, but then we are moving resources all over the globe. And that is how we are basically consuming from overall, right? I mean, we would be importing, we would be exporting, we are, exporting our water in terms of food. So there is a lot in terms of, this movement of resources that is happening all over the globe. Now, coming to forests, in terms of what the forest can provide, there is a lot of buzz around carbon neutrality, carbon sequestration, carbon offsetting, companies want to offset their carbon and all that. But are forests just carbon? Of course, 50% of every tree is carbon by weight. But forests are not just carbon, right? I mean, there is a lot more to forests. It is about, look at the evapotranspiration happening in this particular image, with the cloud formation from these beautiful, rich, dense forests that we have. The amount of water it is enriching, and the soil enrichment that is happening. Ultimately, India has roughly around 600 rivers that originate from the Indian forest reserves. So if you just look at forests, it is not just the produce itself, but today, in fact, last week was Karnataka had a bandh. Why? Over, the Kaveri water dispute. So water disputes, when we were talking in year 2010, it was probably far away. Today, it is reality. Climate change is reality. Water war is a reality. It's already happening, and without these forests of the country, we will not have these rivers flowing in our nation. And every single person who is dependent on a river, be it the Kaveri, which is starting from the Talakaveri, which is in the Kodagu district, flowing eastward, all the way till Pumbuhar in Chennai, you have at least, a few forests in the Western Ghats, which is actually, or the origins of the streams. For example, when you talk to anybody in Karnataka about where does Kaveri originate, they just very plainly say Talakaveri. But then we go back and tell them that, look, it's just one of the streams, primaries, tributaries of Kaveri. If you look at it, Kabini originates in Wayanad district, which is your neighboring state, right? So you look at these east flowing rivers, it is dependent on multiple different points on the along the Western Ghats, which is actually the forests that are conserving, that are ensuring that these streams are flowing all throughout the year. And of course, the rich biodiversity. I'm not going to go deep into it, but then, this is what our forests are, harboring, right? I mean, it is not just about the trees, it's also about the rich diversity in terms of animal life and pollinators and other species that are supporting, the biodiversity of our country. And we forget that even our food is dependent on this biodiversity and also on the forests. Now, this image is from Wayanad, the paddy land. This is a paddy art. One of our farmer friends they do this every year, beautiful paddy art on the paddy land. And Wayanad, if you look at it, it is a mosaic of paddy lands and hills, right? If you look at it, if you stand on the paddy, you see the forests and the hills. If you stand on the forest or the hills, you see the paddy lands. And Wayanad has this term Vayalnadu, right? I mean, they say that the origin of Wayanad is from the term Vayalnadu. But we can also say that it is also Vananadu, right? It's a mosaic of both Vayals and Vana. And 75 different varieties of jackfruit in Western Ghats. I mean, I don't think we even know, we would have even tasted this rich diversity of food that we have all along the Ghats. And this particular image is a monkey jack, right? I mean, it's also the fruit for other wild animals. So we have coexisted in this ecosystem for generations, right? And when you look at the paddy land, the reason for the paddy, or rather the food availability, or the reason why we are able to grow paddy is also because there are so many perennial streams during, that forms during the monsoon. The June-July season, the springs just sprout, right, with that one rain. And that is also the reason why we are able to grow, such an important food crop in this particular landscape. So it's a strong connection between the forests and the farms, and that correlation between the forests and the farmlands, right? Now, I was looking up to find out something about very dense forests, right? What is the percentage of very dense forests that are remaining in our country? And it's a shocking 3.02% of the total geographic area of the country. This is actually the data from State of Forest Report in 2019. And this is an image of our very own Silent Valley. And whenever I look at this image, I always think about this amazing environmental movement in Kerala, the Silent Valley movement, that was able to preserve this amazing canopy density for all of us, to sit together and enjoy, right? Here you have the last remaining tropical wet evergreen forests. And I don't think humans can ever create something like this. So this is what is remaining because of various movements that has happened in the past. And what we need to understand is we have only very less of it remaining with us. And we can be proud because, this is a chip of Kerala that is sitting here as very dense forest. Now, I would also like to help you understand, this is all studies from ISC. This is a report that came up, in 2016, and they were doing the satellite imagery of Kerala. In 1973, it was, you can see this image, and you can see in 2016 what it has become. So we have lost pretty bit, 50% of the total forest area. We have lost for various reasons, right? I mean, it is grow more food, a lot of such programs that happened in the past, and ultimately, again, within Kerala, the very dense forest, which is actually greater than 70% canopy density, is only 1% that is remaining, right? So it's a, so then what are the causes? When we actually delve deeper into the causes, you have causes like quarrying, Kerala, why in a Kerala, to a Kerala audience, quarrying is important is because there are a lot more of issues that are happening because of the quarrying that is happening, around 6,000 functioning stone quarries. And there is also studies that is related to landslides, right? I mean, from 1973 to 2000, there is a study that says that 78 of them were within 1 square kilometer radius from the quarries, the landslides itself. Now, interestingly, I would like to connect it with the legal side as well. There was a Director General of Mines that said the danger zone is around 500 meters from the quarry. Now, NGT, has maintained it as 200 meters, as a safe distance from the quarry. And now in Kerala High Court, it is 50 meters is the safe distance from quarry. And recently, there is also a panel, an expert panel, which basically stated that it has to be 150 meters. Now, the quarry owners are fighting to prove that 150 meters is impractical in Kerala. Now, these are some of the issues that I would like to connect it with the legal side as well, so that you understand that, how policy changes and policy is driving some of these anthropogenic pressures that are actually affecting our natural ecosystems. This is an example of an anthropogenic pressure. Anthropogenic means human-induced pressure. This image is from a World Research Institute report. It is actually roads, and the roads in pictures, the road network in pictures is from Madikeri of Kodagu towards Kannur. And interestingly, these road networks and the landslides had a correlation. After the 2018 landslides, like in Kerala, Kodagu also had a lot of landslides during the 2018, rain. And there was a study done on landslides, and this was also one of the satellite images that basically showed the correlation of road networks and landslides. So these are all human pressures, right, on the landscape that we are kind of seeing. And what else is impacting the forests, right? We talk about roads. Of course, we are not trying to say that the roads are not needed, but this is a road which the road width that was there in the past, and roughly around 8 to 10 meters. Many of the hill districts were having this road width of 8 meters. There is something called an Indian Road Congress, which basically stipulated the road width at 8 meters. And then later on, there is a lot of changes that is happening because of the pressure for widening the road, the constant widening of the road and things like that. Now, from an ecology perspective, this road and the canopy structure has got multiple functions. One, this canopy is very easy for arboreal animals like the monkeys, the bonnet macaques, the lion-tailed macaques, and to cross over, right? I mean, from one forest to the other, these canopies are much needed, for the crossing over, while vehicles can, very easily use these roads. Now, what is really required on these roads is to fill potholes and make it, amazingly smooth and smooth for vehicular movement to happen in a very, good manner. But what happens now is constant widening, right? I mean, this is the structure of the road today. The canopy is not closed. It basically opens up to the sky more. And there is also a study on road ecology where when you open up the sky more, without the canopy, what happens is what comes and colonizes first are the invasive species, alien invasive species, as we call it, which basically threatens the native trees in the landscape. We'll talk about it more, and that is the ecorestoration work that I am covering towards the second part of the conversation. So this is what is basically one of the pressures on the forest that we are talking about. And what is the impact? We often forget that this is a lion-tailed macaque, an endemic endangered species of Western Ghats. In fact, Silent Valley movement itself was the flagship species that was used for protecting Silent Valley was the lion-tailed macaque. And this is significant, right, to see the lion-tailed macaques die, because of our carelessness, our speeding on the roads. This is what has happened in the Valparai. This image by Kalyan Verma was from Valparai, right? And it's not just the lion-tailed macaques. I think we have seen a lot of smaller animals, the mouse deer and a lot of smaller animals, the caracas, along the roadsides of many of our wildlife sanctuaries and national parks. So these are significant, because of the endangered characteristic of the wild animal. So that's why, this comes up very well in the media and newspaper. So there were a few interventions in the past, like the EIA 2020, to some of the interventions that were done. This is a road, Kumta Sirsi is a road that basically passes, which was actually chopping close to 2 lakh trees. And then there is this pump storage project. Basically, the pump storage project itself, if you just look at it, it had a very interesting, technical side of it, which basically is moving water, pumping water from a lower level to the upper level, and then later bringing the water down through gravity to generate power. And why was the power being generated? To basically support the peak requirements of Bangalore as a city. And that's where the consumption comes in, right? I mean, why do we need to divert 877 hectares of forest land, which is huge, inside the lion-tailed macaque sanctuary, wildlife sanctuary, and for our consumption, for the human consumption? As I said, these are last remaining patches. Wildlife need to coexist with us. It can't be every time only for humans. I think we need to look for alternatives. So I'll move on to the next part of this, having set the context of what are we doing with our forests. So that's what we just discussed. Forest First is a 13-year-old nonprofit working with the alignment of UN sustainability goals, which is life on land. So far, the number looks small, it says 400 acres of land, 150 tree species of Western Ghats, which is conserved, including RETs. Now, what is RET? RET is nothing but rare, endangered, and threatened tree species of Western Ghats, like the tiger, which is endangered, like the lion-tailed macaque, which is endangered. There are so many floral species, so many tree species that are endangered in the forest. And that's what, I will talk about, as we go along. Now, why are we doing what we are doing, right? I mean, why should we worry about degraded forest lands? It's degraded because of certain reason, right? This is a common species that you would have all seen. In Kerala, in some parts of Kerala, it is called Aripu. The scientific name is Lantana camara. And in some parts of Kerala, especially the Wayanad region, it's called Kongini. It's commonly seen. You will see that some people actually use it in their pots as horticulture plant and all that. But this is one of the primary invasives that you will see all over the country. Now, I'll tell you some of our field experiences in Wayanad about Lantana camara and how it has basically invaded into these, the forest spaces. Similarly, there is another species called Senna spectabilis. Now, we'll talk about it as we go along. Ultimately, what we are trying to say is that 66% are invaded by alien plants, which means that while we spoke about the quantity of forest land in the previous section of our presentation, here we are talking about the quality of forest land, right? How functional are our forests? In terms of land area, we do have a lot of forest land, but how functional are they? Are these forest land kind of facing certain kind of threats just because of a plant, right? This is a news item that I saw, apex predator threatened by the plant. And what is the apex predator? The tiger. Threatened by a plant? Really? We wonder how. So I'll just talk about Wayanad as a district because we are working in Wayanad with respect to forest conservation. I just wanted to show you how there has been a 62% reduction in forest cover in Wayanad, whereas 1,800% increase in area under plantation. Now, when you see the slide, you will think that, I'm joking, from 1950 to 2018, really, can that be? But look at the satellite images. I don't think, we should look, in this age of technology, I think we have enough technology to basically understand the impact of what we are doing all these years. 1950, you should see how Wayanad was in terms of its forest cover, and then the cultivation came in, then a lot of plantations. And what is the state of Wayanad as a district in 2018? It looks like this. So basically from 1950 to 2018, this is the transition that Wayanad has been facing. Forest cover has been dwindling. You will just see that, there are just patches all over, right? And where did we find this particular satellite imagery? It was from a study on impact of plantation-induced forest degradation on the outbreak of emerging infectious diseases. And that's critical, right? Especially after COVID, I can understand that all of you will relate to emerging infectious diseases. Recently, a place in Kerala, if you are all from the district of Kozhikode, you will know that Kozhikode basically came to a standstill because of the Nipah virus. Now, I was again looking at the research report to understand what were the top findings of the study. One of the top findings, it says that monoculture in plantations are more vulnerable to pest, pathogen, infestation, everything, right? And it is a plantation which is actually, creating the outbreak of certain emerging infectious diseases. In fact, here in Wayanad's context, we talk about KFT. KFT is nothing but the monkey fever and dengue and certain other species that are there. And so ultimately, in a nutshell, what we want to highlight over here is monoculture and plantation has an impact, on even the human health, right? And now many of these infectious diseases, it is not like a direct jump from some wild animal to us. It is through a domesticated animal like pigs or any other, cattle and all that stuff. So having said that about Wayanad and, the district of Wayanad and how the whole overall landscape in terms of land use has changed, here we are talking about what's happening to Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, especially the Tolpatti range where we are currently working. This is a mapping done by Ferns. It was done a few years ago, and then they did the study in 2013 and in 2019 to figure out how this particular plant, right? This is Senna spectabilis. Today, it has basically taken over the entire landscape, right? A few days back, I was talking to Shashi sir, and then, he was mentioning how in those days, they were able to see the invasive characteristics of this tree. Now, over the years, this is already taken over. In Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, the areas that you see in red are all, high density Senna zones, something like this. Now, what's wrong with this plant? It's okay, it looks green and, let it be there. It was actually brought through horticulture, I suppose, because, it has got beautiful yellow color, flowers. It kind of looks like the Kanikonna, the Cassia fistula, or the golden shower that we call it. And look at this, almost 5 to 6 times has spread in 6 years time frame. This is from the restoration site that we are currently working. Extremely thick invasion of Senna spectabilis. And what's wrong with this plant? If you just look at it, it has got certain characteristics. It's called allelopathic characteristic in scientific terms. In simple terms, if I have to put it, it releases certain chemicals that will create conditions for itself and basically does not let any native plant to thrive along with that. And there are no wild animals eating this, because of which it just, multiplies in large numbers all over. There is no predation on these species, on this particular species. This is Lantana camara. This is a familiar plant for all of you. And this is the level of thick invasion that you see in most of the open forests in Wayanad, especially erstwhile teak plantations and all that, where the teak has been felled for timber and suddenly, the canopy has been opened up. When we did a template analysis of the landscape, we figured out that there are only 10 natives, native tree species that are coexisting along with lantana. Means, it is sprouting, it is, coexisting with lantana without any problem. There are few of these native species that are able to emerge out of the lantana area and also establish as a tree and fruit and flower and all that stuff. There were a few trees that we saw which were actually under the lantana, literally, prostrating under the lantana and even fruiting, right? But lantana is not yet a threat in terms of the chemical features that you see along, in Senna. It can still coexist with a native tree, unlike Senna. And this is how the Wayanad streams used to look like, right? In the past, I could find a few of these patches outside of the forest land remaining, in where you have beautiful, large, old growth trees on either side of the stream bank. When I say about the tree species, right, there is something called riverine species, right? It's not like, you go plant chiku, apple, and, maybe any other horticulture species, and then it can survive along the stream course. There are very specific riverine species that are very typical of this kind of habitat. Only they can survive in a high flood and a low drought condition, right? Many of these tree species are adapted. And one of the species that I can actually talk about is our own wild mango. That is one common species that you will find along the river course. And it can survive very well. And, it's also, there are also other species, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the tree species. So if I have questions towards the end, we can discuss that in more detail. This particular patch is inside the forest land, right? Inside the sanctuary. Now you will see the stark contrast, right? It should have been probably something like this. It is what it is, here. This is one of the Onnam Todu, which is a stream that is flowing into River Kabini, and no trees. But that's okay. I'm happy to see the grass, because ultimately the grass is what is feeding our wild animals. And there were, but the other impact of the water regime is that when there is torrential rain, there is almost like flood-like situation in this particular zone. And the moment the rain stops, the entire stream dries out, total drying out of the stream, right? And this is a phenomenon that we are seeing directly with our eyes. And we have been wondering whether the outside world is even aware that an Onnam Todu, which is actually the origin of our stream or origin of River Kabini, is drying up so fast immediately after the rain stops. These are signs for us, right? So I'll now talk about where we all started, right? How did we as an organization, Forest First, how did we start? And this was a small piece of land, a private land of about 8 acres, where there was like hardly any trees, hardly like 10 trees were mapped during the survey map, and highly invaded by invasive plants. There were sparse coffee here and there, because generally the private lands would have a monoculture of silver oak, coffee, and pepper, and coffee was not maintained. So this was the kind of land that we had, just about 10 odd trees, big trees that were mapped on the survey map. High levels of soil erosion. If you just come to the downhill of this particular slope, every rain, you will have red color mud coming out, which was eventually flowing into the river. The nearby river is the Panavalli River or the Tirunelli River. And during rains, the entire soil, during summer, their soil cracks up. Absolutely no moisture level in the soil. So this was the condition of the land. Now with sustained effort, this is what it has become. Absence of lantana, zero lantana on the land now. If anyone of you wants to visit, I'm happy to take you around. No lantana. 150 tree species is what we have conserved. Several of them are rare, endangered, and threatened trees. Wild edible fruits, medicinal plants, all that. Soil is absolutely stable in just a span, right? About 10 years span. Species of frogs have come back. Many species of birds, we don't even know. We have not done a taxonomy survey yet. And leeches. Now, for people, leeches are a no-go thing, right? I mean, we don't like leeches. But I think for us, it is an indicator of soil moisture, higher soil moisture levels. And the cracking up has completely stopped. There is more biomass. So if you just see this understory of that canopy, it's all full leaf litter on the ground. Zero amount of this red mud coming, during the rains. So this is the revival, this is the revival story. And I would say that this revival is what has basically, made us go beyond this 8 acres of small space, do restoration in sacred groves, riparian buffer, which is actually along the river course, coffee estate, diversity, and landslide eco-restoration. So these are various models of eco-restoration that we have done in the past. And everywhere, the floral species are broadly categorized into pollinator attracting species, wild edible fruits, riverine species, RETs, and medicinal plants. So this is how we have been, doing our, the conservation work that, if I have to say. Now, with respect to the forest land restoration that we are currently doing, we have an MOU with the Kerala Forest Department. Now, this is what I will cover in a little bit in depth. And as I said, Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary is sitting like a, it's a connected corridor between the Nagarhole National Park and the Bandipur, right? This is where, in terms of a larger map, part of the Nilgiri biosphere, this is where Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary is sitting, especially the Tolpatti range. It connects between these two national parks. And what was the state of this Tolpatti range? As I said, I showed you the satellite imagery of Wayanad, 50% of deforestation in the past. We are not here to blame anybody. The deforestation has happened in the 1970s. Prior to that, and then we have reached till here. It's not about a blame game. It's about what is the current state of affairs. beyond the deforestation, beyond the plantation, what has actually taken over at the ground level. If you take a satellite imagery, it will look green. That's why we call it the green desert, right? It is because you have Senna spectabilis and lantana, which is literally covering up the entire, area of open forest. And then absence of native tree species, which is also, there is also a compromise on the amount of, diversity that these forests are able to support. Because when you don't have native species, which also means that, it is not supplying the food for the monkeys and various other, wild animals that are coming out of the forest lands and coming in conflict with, the human, nearby human population. So what is the impact? Of course, it is an impact to both wildlife and people, right? You can see this image of the elephant coming and raiding the paddy crop. Of course, the elephant's behavior patterns have changed. They are also adapting more towards our kind of food. But there is also a fodder problem in the forest, because, when you have too many invasives and with all this Senna spectabilis taking over, there is a lack of fodder availability. With respect to that, there is also a soil water holding capacity. And we are working in this, the village where we are working is Tirunelli village, and which is also the highest population of tribals, various different tribal indigenous tribes living in the community. And it's also a critical animal corridor between Nagarhole and Bandipur, as I said. So what is our primary objective? What are our primary objectives? Native floral species conservation, eradication of invasive species, and of course, building the social capital. Because the, one of the bigger insights that we have seen, is that along with the degradation of the forest land, there is also degradation of traditional ecological knowledge. The tribals, when the youth, when they were initially working with us, we figured that a lot of these native species, they were not even able to identify. So what do we do in terms of a solution and approach? We do pitting and planting during the monsoon. We uproot invasive Senna. We do lantana invasive uprooting, and we also do maintenance and mulching. And there is also a little bit of this small seed collection and nursery management that we do. We have actually started a few, nurseries owned by the tribal population, because it's also supporting the eco-restoration work that we are doing. So we have a template of the kind of species that we need to plant, which is actually prescribed by the plant taxonomist. We can't be planting any species because it is basically, we are only copy pasting what nature is already doing there in the local areas. So it's only the local native species that are, planted. There is no planting of any other species. So this particular template is what is being used for the work. Now, if you see the uprooting of invasive Senna spectabilis, it is done manually. There are only handheld tools that are used. I'll tell you the reason for doing that. And when you do it manually, this process of basically removing the Senna tree, basically the first uprooting with the mother root is a very fairly easy process. The most effort intensive one are lateral roots like these. And we have seen around 40 feet. This image was taken last month during one of our Senna removal process. 40 feet long Senna spectabilis is what we have got so far, as this is the highest or the largest one that we have unearthed. And several of them, right? I mean, so this is what one of the primary process that we do with invasive Senna spectabilis. And after uprooting, this is how the land will look like, and, with a few, what is it called, pits formed because of the Senna roots. And of course, we have an extended monitoring team that keeps coming, the elephants and tigers. It's their habitat where we are working. And the uprooted Senna forms a pit like this. And just in about 6 months time frame, this is what has recovered, right? I mean, there's a huge natural regeneration of native grass. The pits are basically covered with grass because there is better water regime there. And in one rain, right, Now you'll ask, aren't there secondary regeneration of seedlings? Yes, but our experience is also that when the seedlings regenerate in a higher number in the first year, the second year, there is only 10% or 5% of whatever was regenerating in the first year. So there is basically a gradual reduction in the seedling regeneration in every plot where we have basically uprooted the senna. And what is nature doing after the uprooting of senna? There is so much, which is actually waiting to regenerate, the Mother Earth seed bank, right? And this is what we have observed. Several species, there are medicinal species, there's a wild yam, and several, tree species, which were, if there is a mother tree which is locating in the surrounding region, you will see that, the seeds are sprouting, which was not there, when the senna is, invading into the space. This is also a technique. This is called assisted natural regeneration. We are only doing a small bit and the remaining is done by nature, right? So this is lantana. What you're seeing, the root structure is of lantana. It is not a very deep root structure. Both for senna and lantana, the root structure is not deep. Whereas in the case of senna, the lateral roots grow, all over the place. So roughly 17,000 native species is where, what we do is we do a selective removal of lantana around these established, native species. And then, you will suddenly see that, there is a lot more of land area available around it for it to branch out and, establish better. Now, the images here will look as if, these are all very well-grown trees, but under this, there are so many smaller saplings that will be sprouting. You can see that, around this itself, you will see some 10 to 12 bamboo seedlings sprouting. So we don't do any planting of bamboo primarily because of this reason. The land is having enough and more of seed sprouting of bamboo. And this is one of the, testimonies of the work that we are doing, right? I mean, in November 2020, we cleared lantana around this, and this is what this particular tree has become in just about 3 years' time. Now, you will think that every tree will become like this, but that is where I wanted to talk about species, right? Every species, the growth rate is different. It is not like that, you plant a tree species and immediately the sapling will become a big tree in no time. That's not the case. There are certain species that will take ages for it to become even a 6 foot tall to 7 foot tall tree. That's also because, some of these extremely slow growing trees are also sequestering a large amount of carbon, and these hardwood trees are also very slow growing. This particular tree in the image is called Erilam Pala in Malayalam. Very easy to establish in that particular landscape. And we are seeing that, it's establishing very well in this landscape. Several patches of post-removal of lantana. For, a restorer, grass basically brings a lot of joy because more than the trees, establishing of grass is faster. And when you see that the land is taken over by grass, it also means that there is fodder availability for wildlife. So grass is a very, very important component of, eco-restoration. This is the planting effort. It is not done by volunteers. It is done by restorers who are actually supported through our, fundraising efforts. Their livelihoods are supported by us. These are all local tribal, people. We started off during the time of COVID when there was hardly any work in the region. Some of them were also turning into poachers, slow turning into wildlife poaching, all that. There is no direct tangibility of the kind of, impact this work has done, but we know for sure, by just directly talking to some of them, we know that this effort is actually supporting the local tribals. So what are the tree species that we conserve? We conserve wild edible fruits. As I said, there's several species of wild edible fruits that we conserve. Riverine species. This particular plant is called Maroti in Malayalam. It's an oil seed used in the treatment of skin ailments. This is a pollinator attracting species. In fact, I love this tree. It's it's a common tree. You know, it's not even you know, a very rare tree or anything. It's a murukku. It's a mul murukku. It used to be there in Wayanad and was used as a prop for pepper by local farmers. But because of the use of pesticides, this tree has basically almost disappeared from the private lands. And I have been witness to at least 6 or 7 different species of birds, you know, sitting on one particular tree, you know, and such beautiful flowers of murukku. It's a pollinator attracting species, and several medicinal species also we plant. So you will wonder, you know, what are these RETs that we are planting? You know, I've just given the scientific name. Don't worry about the scientific name. Many of them are, you know, species that are also medicinal in nature. This particular tree, Venga, is also able to establish extremely well in the landscape. This is Punna. It's also a riverine tree. You know, and then you have the Syzygium stocksy is called Kolli Nyaval. Kolli Nyaval is, Kolli is your, Kolli in Wayanad terms is, you know, is a stream, or, you know, closer to the stream, right? This also is found along the stream course, and it establishes very well in this kind of landscape. So I'm just giving you a quick highlight about what is surviving in that kind of a landscape, right? So planting 1 to 2 year old saplings is supported us. We have got some 70% success rate, because every year we do mulching of species, which also means that we are able to count the number of saplings that we are able to mulch. So these are some of the data the tribal restorers are able to support us with. Now, we don't plant in areas like this, right? This is a high browsing zone. Browsing means this is used by the deer and other large, you know, mammals like gaur for their fodder. So we don't plant in these kind of spaces. So overall, 326 acres, 40K saplings, 17K saplings freed from lantana, all that, and 4 tribal nurseries. We are able to, you know, support because of this particular, you know, effort that we are doing there. There is a video. I don't want to spend time showing this video. You can see it on our YouTube channel of our restorers speaking, and how the livelihood is supporting them. So there is a lot of people related connect, right? I mean, with the eco-restoration work that they are doing, and, you know, overall, it has supported close to 48 tribals per annum, right? It might look small in the overall scheme of things, but this is what it has basically, you know, start from small 70 acres, and we have moved on to 326 acres. And of course, this is a collaborative work. This can't happen with just 1 person or 2 people. It is a lot to do with, first, the Kerala Forest Department, who has been supporting us. And without the Forest Department support, it's not possible to basically take forward this work. And a lot more people, right? Experts, plant taxonomists who are helping us. And you can see how one of our restorers also picked up the computer skills, and, you know, he's also helping us with many of this data that we are basically talking about. So I'll kind of, you know, take a pause to ask this question. You know, this is in fact a Tambagam tree. You know, it's also called Hopia. This image was taken from Aralam Wildlife Sanctuary, and you can see this person trying to climb this tree. You know, huge buttress roots of the tree, and old growth mother tree. I don't know how many years old. Maybe, I'm sure it's more than 100 to 200 years old, you know, of a tree, which is actually, for me, when I look at this tree, it is the futuristic seed bank, right? We plant Hopia, right? And I'm sure that for us to look at a Hopia tree that we have planted and for it to become like this in our lifetime, it is not possible. And the kind of ecological services the planted saplings are going to give, it cannot replace this old growth tree that is standing there. So recently, I'll connect it back to one of the legal, expert, the Supreme Court appointed committee basically came up with this number. How much does a heritage tree cost? What is the value of a heritage tree? This was in this case of Association for Protection of Democratic Rights. It said that every tree, per annum value of it is 74,500 rupees per annum for the tree. I would say it is underrated, right? It's much more than that. Anyway, we need to conserve the messages. We need to conserve what is standing. A planting is not going to kind of, replace the value of standing forests. So the idea of sustainability or the idea of development that we are talking about, I think we need to learn from this great law of Iroquois, right? And this is what we all need to question internally, come back to us and ask this question. They're talking about every action of theirs or every decision of theirs. The question is, would this benefit their children 7 generations into the future, which is roughly 140 years? And that's called the 7-generation sustainability. So imagine, our politicians and decision makers and everybody who is part of this community asking this question, this development, is it going to, support or benefit their children 7 generations into the future? So is chopping off forests worth it? Can we give back silent valleys? It's not possible, doing restoration and working with these landscapes. We know for sure that it's not possible for humans to create Silent Valley National Parks. What we are doing with respect to the, invasive management is only, undoing our own doing of, introducing these alien invasive species that are detrimental for our forests. And ultimately, no amount of compensatory afforestation can replace this large old growth trees that are our futuristic seed banks. And restoration, like recycling, right? I mean, we understand waste. Waste recycling, recycling is the last option. First is to refuse and reduce. Similar manner, I think what we need to do is conserve our already existing landscapes. The question to all of you, I stop here, is can we dream of a world where judges, lawyers are ethical and shows their loyalty only to Mother Earth, nobody else? Thank you so much.
Now we have a feedback session. Those who wish to clarify their doubts may raise hand using hand raising option in the Zoom. Those who wish to clarify their doubts.
Can you hear me, madam?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you very much for this excellent talk and fantastic data regarding this Wayanad district, madam. So my clarification is like, is this data that we
Sir,
can...
sorry for the interruption. Can you please turn on your camera?
Okay, 1 second. So my question is like, is it possible for us to extend this data towards whole Kerala?
You're talking about the satellite imagery, right?
Satellite image, yes, yes. So, and so this is a comparison between 2018 and 22, is it, madam?
No, the Wayanad satellite images, what was given is from 1950 to 2018, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, okay. So satellite image you have taken recently, means 2018 only, is it? Not
So,
50.
What I would like to clarify is the satellite images that I have shown here are from existing research reports that are publicly available, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So this is not what I have taken, and that is why I wanted to clarify that it is from a emergent infectious diseases. There is a study done on Wayanad, and they were showing the correlation between the plantations and the emergence of infectious diseases. Right. So it
Okay.
is not something that I have taken, but definitely your question is valid. It should be possible for taking satellite image of the state. And in fact, that IIC study that I showed, where you're seeing the map of Kerala, right? You know, from between 1973 to 2016, there it's again satellite imagery of the state, you know, how land use has changed. It is possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Madam,
Yes.
I just
Yes,
want to know you said about the corridor between that is it is connecting Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary is connecting between is connecting between this that is Nagarhole and the other one
Bandipur.
Bandipur. Okay, is it connecting? Does it have a corridor connection to Mudumalai?
Yeah, definitely. It's a connected landscape, right? I mean, the entire landscape, the whole of Nilgiri biosphere is connected. You know, I'm sure.
Then
yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Then the issue is apart from Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, there are also the Wayanad North Division and also the Wayanad South Division. How do your activities extend to those areas also?
So right now, of course, you know, your question is very valid because Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, especially the area, the Tolpeti range that we are working is adjacent to the Tirunelli Kudrakod elephant corridor, which is just adjacent to, you know, in fact, we share boundaries on the other side. And North Wayanad division is also sharing boundaries, especially the Begur division is sharing boundaries with the Tolpeti range.
Tolpati.
Yes. But at this point in time,
Tirunelli is in Begur, isn't it?
Yes,
Begur range.
yeah, the Tirunelli, yes. So at this point in time, we don't have permission to work with the North Wayanad division. We only have permission to work with the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary.
Same invasive issues there in these two divisions also, North Wayanad and South.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a problem extending all over to the Nilgiris, Mudumalai, you know, and in fact, recently I was traveling to Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary, and it was so shocking to see how Sena big trees have already come there and established. You know, they're like huge. It's not even open forest. It is actually huge old growth native trees are there, and Sena is colonizing in between these old growth trees.
I'm told that the Periyar range in told that the Periyar range in North Wayanad is having one of the best rainforests or tropical evergreen forest, wet evergreen forest, as said about the Silent Valley. Isn't it correct?
Yes, in fact, some of the ranges of both South Wayanad division as well as the North Wayanad division have got, you know, quite a good amount of intact forest left. The areas that I'm talking about is more on the eastern side.
Then another issue, madam, regarding lantana camera. Now, lantana camera, now for example, in our institution, we have purposefully planted it for the purpose of attracting butterflies, because it's a nectar species for butterflies. So it is both. Then in some places they have to be planted. Their presence are also required, though they are invasive in nature. Whether it is total rooting out of lantana camera would be conducive to biodiversity, or how far it has to be restricted, because what we find is that this is one species which attracts, as a nectar plant, attracts butterflies the most, and especially all species of butterflies.
Yeah. So I'm not denying there are a lot of butterfly species as well as bird species that are, coming under, lantana. There is also a study which says that because of this mono plant, the diversity of the bird species are also impacted because of the presence of a high dominant invasives, because there will be certain bird species that will dominate. It's all, positioning where it is. And the other question that I will ask is, there are a lot more of native plants that are currently available, which I think, there is so much more of socializing with communities like these on butterfly host native plants. There are so many native plants. Many of them are medicinal plants, which could be planted. And, there are, people, in fact, FRLHT in Bangalore, they are, they're creating spaces, especially inside campuses, where they call it like resourceful gardens. Most of it are native medicinal plants. So the function that you're talking about with lantana, the same function can be achieved through a native, host plant. There are several native host plants that one can, plant for attracting butterflies and birds. In fact, our experience in, in the small, in the few patches that we have worked, be it, sacred groves, is that the number of bird species have also come back in larger numbers. Earlier, with the presence of lantana, you would just see maybe red-whiskered bulbul. But the diversity of bird species literally, multiplies, when you have the native species which are actually conserved in the landscape.
I was just asking that lantana, now it has is an exotic or indigenous species, lantana?
It's an exotic. It's an exotic. Yeah,
Now
introduced by the British.
Now it has come to stay here and has become part of a biodiversity. So completely eliminating them, is it desirable, or should we have a little bit of it?
So, in the wild space that we are working, I wouldn't recommend a full clearing of lantana. That is precisely the reason why we are working, under, you will see that many of our, work is around native established trees, where lantana is literally strangulating the native tree, be it Butea, which is your, flame of the forest. Which is actually has got very good restoration potential, right? You don't see, if you see Senna spectabilis, what happens is when you remove lantana, we are also observing that Senna is closing, into areas where lantana is completely uprooted. So that is why you need the space for the native species to basically establish, branch out, like how I showed that picture of an aerial impala, which is able to establish and branch. Any wild edible tree which is able to establish and branch, and food for, because, when you talk about biodiversity, it's not just one or two species, right? It is a multi-species that we need to think about. And, it's not about complete eradication or anything, for a species like lantana, I feel it's a long way for us to think of a complete eradication. It can only be managed. Especially, areas where lantana has completely taken over grasslands. When you say grassland versus lantana, I would definitely say grassland, because, when lantana is taken over the grassland, then it has a issue with respect to the fodder availability of the larger mammals, right? So these are certain balancing that one will have to definitely think of. And what we do in human spaces is very different. The invasive nature of the species becomes much more multiplied in wild spaces, right? If a senna tree is sitting in a coffee planter's land, because they are constantly working around it, the species probably may not become an invasive, because, they are cutting, chopping, they are removing the, areas around it and things like that. But in a wild space, it's basically jumped, and it has basically created unproductive forests, right?
Madam, one last question.
Yeah, sure.
Madam, what is your take on the Supreme Court insisting on 1 kilometer buffer zone for protected area? but we have only, as Madam has said, 150 meters for non-protected forest lands, non-protected area forest lands.
No, what I
Uh,
mentioned was on the quarrying, right? I mean, that is not
Quarrying,
from
quarrying.
the, that's not from the wild spaces, that is from residential areas. It's,
Yes.
yeah, that's not
Also
connected with.
forest. I'm saying with forest also, the Supreme Court is insisting on 1 kilometer only in respect of protected areas, sanctuaries, national parks, and is not insisting on other forest areas. Has it got any logic, or what is your madam's opinion on that?
See, so what was your question? Are you saying that, you know, it should be for all forests or
Yeah, all forests, because these are all
connect?
nomenclatures we make. Parks, sanctuaries, and all forests are part of habitat. And when you speak about wildlife, we find more wildlife in non-protected areas like sanctuaries and national parks than in other in non reserve forests. Several reserve forests contain more biodiversity than in wildlife sanctuaries or the national parks.
So my take is, I wish, you know, it was everywhere, but my question is, even for the PAs, it is such an uphill task to implement it, right? At least for the PAs, right? So I think today we are in a situation where, you know, to implement the buffer zone around PAs itself is causing a lot of, you know, resistance from people who are dependent, you know, be it, you know, owners of, you know, quarry crushers or resorts or any such activities that is happening around these protected areas. So it's going to be an uphill task, right, to implement at least there, you know, if it is implemented, I think, you know, there is a lot one can achieve. Because to just go and do everywhere, you know, I'm sure it would become like more like a Madhav Gadgil committee report where, you know, such implementations literally backfired on the forests. You know, there were forest fires. We are witness to the forest fires that happened in Wayanad, you know, and I wouldn't want to kind of trigger any such, you know, mishaps in the future either, right? So it's a very, very delicate balance working with the communities around it, and also some of these policies that are changing for us. Yeah.
That is correct, madam, because madam, what you said is absolutely what from my perspective also, what I find is that these communities are living close to the even protected. It's very difficult task because not only quarries and resorts, but also the usual common man. A lot of people are leaving. So the government has sought for reducing this 1 kilometer buffer for many areas to bring it to 1.0, even in protected. Thank you, madam. It was an excellent one, madam. So
Thank you so much.
enlightening and illuminating. Thank you, madam.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Kindly pardon, due to time constraints, we are winding up the feedback session. I wish to extend my heartfelt appreciation to you, ma'am, for dedicating your valuable time to be with us and for sharing your insightful words that have filled us with admiration and joy, enriching our knowledge. We are truly enlightened by your wisdom. Gratitude makes sense of our past. Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. These are the famous words of Melody Betty. I invite Shri Varun Dev Sir, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy, to render the vote of thanks for this session.
Thank you, Janani. So, as for the chief guest, Dr. Meera Chandran ma'am, esteemed faculty members, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today with a heart filled with gratitude and appreciation as we conclude the second session of the Wildlife Week Celebration 2023 webinar, organized by the Kerala Law Academy Law College in association with the KLA Forestry Club and IQAC KLA. This event has been an enlightening and enriching experience for all of us and it would not have been possible without the collective efforts of many individuals and organizations. First and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the late Dr. N. Narayan Nair, sir, founder of Kerala Law Academy, who always remains an inspiration for us in the conducting these events. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our distinguished speaker for today, Advocate Meera Chandran ma'am. Her profound knowledge, dedication, and commitment to the cause of wildlife conservation are truly inspiring. Advocate Meera Chandran ma'am, your informative and thought-provoking talk on the eco-restoration works at Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary has shed light on the critical effort being undertaken to protect our precious wildlife and their habitats. Your insights have left an indelible mark on our minds. I stand here with immense gratitude to extend heartfelt gratitude to our Director of Kerala Law Academy, Advocate Nagaraj Narayan sir, and Professor K. Anilkumar sir, the esteemed Director of Administration, Students and Faculty Affairs at Kerala Law Academy Law College. Under the dynamic leadership of these eminent personalities, our college has been a beacon of knowledge, nurturing countless young minds and paving way for their success in legal work. We would like to express our sincere appreciation to our respected principal, Harindran K. sir, Vice Principal Professor Kumar G. sir, and senior faculty, Professor Dr. Ajita Nair L. Ma'am, whose visions, leadership, and unwavering commitment to excellence has shaped our institution into a center of academic brilliance. We have also been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of dedicated organizing committee, faculty members, which includes Advocate Kasturi Nagaraj ma'am, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy, and Sri N.K. Shashiran sir, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy. I sincerely thank them for their august presence in this session. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to Srimati Priya M.K., Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy Law College, for delivering the warm and welcoming note at the beginning of this event. Your words set a positive tone and created an inviting atmosphere for all the participants. I also express my immense gratitude to our IT team, office staff, technical and administrative staff, students, conveners, anchoring team, and our student moderator for today, Janagi JV, for their tireless efforts for the success of this event. I extend my thanks to all the faculty members, staff, and students who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the smooth organization of this event. Your dedication and hard work have been instrumental in making this webinar successful. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank each and every participant who joined us today. Your active engagement, thoughtful questions, and enthusiasm have made this event not just informative, but also memorable. As we conclude today's webinar session, I encourage all of us to carry forward the knowledge and insights gained today and translate them into actions that contribute to the conservation of our wildlife and the protection of our environment. Thank you once again to all our esteemed guests, speakers, participants, and organizers for being a part of this significant event. Together, we can make a positive impact on the future of our planet. Wishing you all a pleasant evening, and let us continue our journey towards a greener and more sustainable world. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your heartfelt vote of thanks. I take this opportunity to express gratitude towards you too, sir. With that, we have come to the end of today's session as a part of Wildlife Week celebrations put forward by Kerala Law Academy Law College in association with Forestry Club and IQAC KLA. I use this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude towards Advocate Nagaraj Narayan sir, Director, Kerala Law Academy Law College, who has wholeheartedly supported us throughout this journey. I would also like to extend my sincere gratitude towards Professor Anilkumar K. sir, Director, Administration, Students and Faculty Affairs, Professor Harindran K. sir, Principal, Kerala Law Academy Law College, Professor Anilkumar G. sir, Vice Principal, Kerala Law Academy Law College, Advocate Kasturi Nagaraj ma'am, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy Law College, and Shri N.K. Shashidaran sir, Assistant Professor, Kerala Law Academy Law College, for providing us with such a wonderful platform. I would like to express my gratitude to our dedicated faculty conveners for their unwavering support. My sincere appreciation goes out to our student conveners, office staff, administrative staff, as well as our IT team for their relentless efforts in ensuring the success of this event. Finally, I extend my heartfelt thanks to each one of you for your generous cooperation and patience. This is Janaki JV signing off. Thank you all.